They drop that price tag every single time. Watch some of my old videos recently. Used to be $7,500 off. Then it was $8,500. Then I think $9,000. Now we're at $10,000. That's going to continue to be the case as we teeter deeper into 2025, I assure you. And if you're the type to wear socks with Crocs, you might appreciate the 1794 edition version of this Toyota Tundra here. They're the prime examples of quality going down and price tags going up. You get less of a motor, more complexities to it. They're overdone and overpriced. Just under $80,000. People who buy F-150s, they don't buy an EV version of it, right? You know, the blue collar working class, they're not eagerly coming out and buying this monstrosity. As new vehicle purchases are really for the upper class only. The middle class is being priced out of the segment. You can't buy a new vehicle anymore. You should never have to spend this kind of coin and have to be worried that your engine isn't going to grenade itself, right? One tall tale sign that vehicle manufacturers and dealerships alike are getting desperate is when they start offering really, really nice leasing incentives on their vehicles. And we see that with the GMC Sierra 1500 in particular. And by sheer luck, I happen to have the most expensive Toyota Tacoma on this lot, right next to the least expensive. This right here is for the gentleman who talks about high school football a little bit too much. I do find it quite sad that Toyota has to slash prices $8,000 to $12,000 off in order to move this metal, or plastic I should say. Most vehicle manufacturers, really all but Tesla, have lost money in their EV segment, right? They've lost money year to year. Especially the last 2 years, Ford lost $4.2 billion on their EV segment. Happen to be a millennial who didn't play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 throughout your upbringing, you may just appreciate this 2020 Ram 1500 for $42,000 over 75,000 miles. Pretty sad. As I walk through all these Santa Fe's here, all of them are high 40s and low $50,000 range. This here is as dumbed down version of it as you can get, but even then, we're $44,000. Base model, 4-door, Ford Bronco. If you went through a Clay Aiken phase, you might be more interested in the Bronco Sport here. Let me remind you of how much they want for these. You know, you can't trick yourself into believing that. These will not hold the same residual. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. Are you fed up with the low quality vehicles and the astronomical price tags on absolutely everything now? Nowadays, vehicle manufacturers, they are all producing and pumping out these throwaway vehicles. These vehicles that are really built to last maybe 5 years, 6, 7 years tops, and then force you to have to trade it in. They want you to trade it in, they want you to bring it in for maintenance, they want you to bring it in for service, and they need you to keep that revenue stream going. They need to keep the profits high, keep them in the green, keep dealerships in the green, and the vehicle manufacturers alike. There's no reliability anymore. Everything is overcomplicated, overcomplex, everything is turbocharged, everything is hybridized, everything has gone a step too far, and people are fed up with it. There's very little resale or residual value in modern day vehicles because, well, the quality isn't there. They've lessened it far too much, and they hike the price tags up. You can't sell it for any kind of type of money. In today's video, I'm going to showcase a number of examples to you and really prove that point that vehicles have just become throwaway cars. Either you're getting a cheap piece of crap that's overcomplicated and stuffed to the gills with technology and still overpriced, or you can actually dip into a really cool vehicle segment here like the Ford F-150 Raptor. This is an awesome truck. I've owned it before. It is another example of them lessening displacement size of a motor, giving you a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 EcoBoost underneath the hood now, and still hiking up the price tag to the moon. We're dang near $100,000. We're dang near 6 figures for this F-150 Raptor here. 94,000 and some change is the MSRP. This one's on sale down to just under 92 grand. And believe it or not, this is an unsold 2024 unit. You know, that's become pretty common, right? You go to any dealership, you're gonna see a ton of unsold 2024 units collecting dust because people cannot justify the monthly payments on a price tag like that. Same goes for the Ford Bronco Raptor here, right? These actually got to the high 90s, and some of them actually tick over into the $100,000 price range, which is absolutely sickening. All right, guys, I admit it. I like the look of the new generation Toyota Tacoma. I love the look, especially of this 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. I think it looks great. However, be careful trusting my judgment. I also went through a Nickelback phase. I mean, this right here is a prime example of getting less for more money, right? This all new generation Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro will cost you dang near $70,000, $67,000, $68,000. And that was before a lot of greedy dealerships were trying to charge markups on top of that MSRP. So these price tags, they've been shot to the moon. The previous generation actually sported a reliable, naturally aspirated V6 underneath the hood, was right around $53,000. So they hiked up the price tag, forced you to have a 4-cylinder underneath the hood, a hybridized 4-banger underneath the hood that nobody asked for and nobody truly loves. Well, this right here, it epitomizes what I'm saying to you guys. This is a used, a used 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. Very low miles on it, as you'd imagine, just 1 year old. Someone bought it, spent an enormous amount of money and said, no thanks, this is not worth it. Boy, did dealerships lick their chops when they first got the big body Broncos to their lots, right? They were charging markups left and right, $10,000 or more over sticker price, over MSRP for this Bronco, which is pretty sad, right? Here we have the two-door Badlands Sasquatch package. This one's used. I can't imagine a dealership successfully selling a used example of the Ford Bronco here when they already have lines upon lines of unsold brand new ones sitting there collecting dust. How are they supposed to sell this? Nowadays, reliability and simplicity is pure gold, and that is why you see the values of these 5th generation Toyota 4Runners shooting to the moon. People miss reliability and simplicity and affordability, right? These were affordable, but nowadays with the new generation, 6th generation Toyota 4Runner, they've been priced to the moon, getting up to $67,000, $68,000 for the Trail Hunter and TRD Pro models. People are jumping back to what they know and what they trust. Here we have another example. This one here is a TRD Off-Road, a used example with the lift kit and some BF Goodrich KO2 tires on it. It looks great. A very common look for the 4Runner here. People are jumping back to what they know and what they trust, and this is it. And I find it to be a shame that Jeep, or Stellantis at large, kind of crapped the bed when it comes to the Jeep Wrangler 392 here. This sports an incredible 6.4 liter Hemi V8 underneath the hood. This 392 is an absolute beast, right? But unfortunately, they produced a final edition in 2024, and now they're bringing it back with another final edition. So it kind of rubs people the wrong way. People thought that they were getting the last of the big V8 here, but then they brought it back. So kind of a, I don't know, catch-22. It's good and bad. They're bringing back the V8, but a lot of people feel like they were cheated a little bit because the value of their quote-unquote final edition in 2024 just went down tremendously because, well, there's a brand new 25 final edition too. Examples like this Ford Maverick here are selling well, not because they're wildly popular or that they're an incredible truck. They're very simplistic, they're very affordable. Many of these are priced right around that $30,000, $32,000 range. This is what people can justify for a monthly payment. With the average new truck price being now over $64,000, it should come as no surprise as to why used values on used trucks have gone up substantially since the beginning of 2025 here. We're talking 10 to 15% on average. We've seen an uptick in used values. Kind of crazy. It's largely because new trucks aren't selling. They're priced to the moon. They're priced out of touch with reality. People cannot justify paying those monthly payments, especially with current interest rates being over 7% on average for a new vehicle purchase and over 11% on a used vehicle. People are saying no thanks. You know the old saying, you get what you pay for? I used to be a firm believer of that. Honestly, I used to be a believer of that for the majority of my life. Not so much recently. When you look at the price tags of so many of these vehicles behind me, it just doesn't make sense. Many of these F-150s, they're averaging between $65,000 and $70,000. Since when? Since when do you need to spend over 60 grand for a Ford F-150, America's best-selling pickup truck here? I don't know. I don't think that's going to continue to be the case if they keep those price tags up. Just as a friendly reminder, let me show you this Ford F-150 XLT, kind of a mid-tier, mid to lower tier trimmed vehicle here, but just under $60,000, $58,210 for this 2024. So keep in mind that 2024, there's so many unsold 2024 units. A huge majority of the trucks here are from 2024. Pretty sad. Let me show you this Lariat trimmed one here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. But look at this. A Lariat is now going to cost you, hopefully it'll focus for you, but over $72,000. Absolutely insane. And heaven forbid you wanted more off-roady version of your F-150, you can get the Ford F-150 Tremor here. If you don't want to go all in and get the Raptor with the big Baja fender flares, you can spend $80,000, over $80,000 for this Ford F-150 Tremor. This one doesn't even have the 5-liter V8 in it. This one has the 3.5-liter EcoBoost. So if you're going to opt for a Tremor, in my personal opinion, you need to get the V8. You tell me. We have a few mid to lower trimmed examples of the Super Duty on the far end of this lot here. Let me show you this XLT trim here. I think this would be a common pick. This is F350 Super Duty. This one is sporting the 6.7 liter Power Stroke. It doesn't have the high output Power Stroke. If it did, it would have a red 6.7 liter badge down there. But look at that, still just under 72 grand. I hate that that is the new norm. Here we have a couple more Super Duties. Let me show you this Rocky Ridge example here. Got the Rocky Ridge badge out back, wide fender flares on it, of course a lift kit on it, some BF Goodrich mud terrain tires, Obviously some aftermarket wheels on it. This right here is for the gentleman who talks about high school football a little bit too much, right? F250 XLT here. I think it's antimatter blue is the color. I like the color, big fan of that. But what I'm not a fan of is this astronomical price tag. Hopefully you're able to see it there, but over $107,000 is the MSRP with it, all dolled up like this. And well, $104,000 is the discounted price. You tell me, you buying it? Bird said, no thanks. And here we have the Ford F-150 Lightning. This here, of course, was a byproduct of political wins within the United States. Nowhere else in the world are they trying to pump out creatures like this, right? Just under $80,000. 80 grand for an F-150 Lightning. Absolutely absurd. People who buy F-150s, they don't buy an EV version of it, right? You know, the blue collar working class, they're not eagerly coming out and buying this monstrosity. And for those of you who don't know, with the big beautiful bill just passing for the Trump administration, they actually got rid of the $7,500 government subsidy for EV purchases. So that's going to go out the window here with the F-150 Lightning. We expected that to happen underneath Trump. We have vehicles like this where a lot of Americans feel like they have no choice. They have to come out. They're going to buy a new vehicle. This is it, right? Great fuel economy in these Toyotas examples here. The Corollas, the Camrys, the Priuses, the RAV4s. And there is no denying that the Toyota RAV4 is a wise pick, right? I mean, you get great fuel economy in this. The price tags aren't totally to the moon yet. You can get many examples between that $35,000 and $42,000 range. But if I were to be buying a fuel efficient vehicle, personally, I would opt for the new Toyota Camrys here. I mean, I love the look of Camrys. Obviously, I have a bit of a bias for Toyota. You guys know that. But this right here just makes sense, especially with the price tags. I don't know. These monthly payments, if you're to finance this, it's not going to beat you up every month, right? You get the reliable reputation of a Toyota Camry with that nameplate. So this here, in my opinion, makes sense. You tell me. And if you're the type to wear socks with Crocs, you might appreciate the 1794 edition version of this Toyota Tundra here. And although obviously I say that tongue-in-cheek, I do actually like this one a little bit because the interior is pretty exceptional. But that price tag is not exceptional, right? Hopefully you can actually see it a little bit, but you have that kind of that brown, saddlebag brown interior that looks pretty incredible in this. That part I like. However, much of the rest of it, pretty lackluster in my opinion. And you know, when you look at price tags like that, becoming much more commonplace nowadays, it really begins to feel as though as new vehicle purchases are really for the upper class only. The middle class is being priced out of the segment. You can't buy a new vehicle anymore unless you're getting a bare bones, sparse down example. You're not going to go out and get a nicely trimmed, nicely spec'd vehicle anymore without totally breaking the bank, and that's a shame. And I know I've mentioned this on the channel, but I do think it's a point worth reiterating. The EV segment amongst vehicle manufacturers whose focus is not EVs, I'm talking Ford, General Motors, Nissan, other vehicle manufacturers outside of Tesla, outside of Rivian, when they invested so much money into producing these electric vehicles, that ultimately led to two things. One, it led to an increase of insurance premiums for everybody across the board because these cost a lot to make, right? You just saw the price tag of that Ford F-150 Lightning. They cost an arm and a leg, right? Replacing it and fixing things, replacing batteries, swapping out the batteries, cost a ton of money. And that leads to higher premiums for insurance, right? Not to mention it does ultimately lead to an increase of MSRPs. And what I mean by that is most vehicle manufacturers, really all but Tesla, have lost money in their EV segment, right? They've lost money year to year, especially the last 2 years. Ford lost $4.2 billion on their EV segment. And well, they're going to overcompensate. They're going to compensate for that elsewhere. And that means paying a little bit more for the other vehicles amongst Ford's lineup. The Toyota Tundra, the Toyota Tacoma, the new Toyota Land Cruiser, Sequoia, these are all, and 4Runner, they're the prime examples of quality going down and price tags going up. You get less of a motor, more complexities to it. They're overdone and overpriced, right? And we're just fed up with it. People are so tired of spending what, $800 to $1,200 per month for these monthly payments on these things, only for a lesser quality product. We talk about it too much on the channel, I know, but the Toyota Tacoma is totally outsourced that production to Mexico. And well, you can't expect the highest quality to come out of Mexico. We're talking, huge panel gaps, rattly interiors, problematic transmissions. We're seeing issues with the Tacoma even still, which is why I showed you that 2024 Tacoma TRD Pro, the top dog, TRD Pro, which people should theoretically be wildly excited about. Even they are coming at discounts brand new. And even they are being traded in just a couple thousand miles later, which is pretty sad, huh? Sites like this are not unique to my local dealerships, right? I mean, I live in Wyoming. Trucks are very popular. The vast majority of vehicles that you see out on the road are large SUVs, four-wheel drive SUVs, and trucks, especially full-size trucks like the Toyota Tundra here. But even here in Wyoming, they can't sell these things. I do find it quite sad that Toyota has to slash prices $8,000 to $12,000 off in order to move this metal, or plastic, I should say. Look at that, over 62 grand for this SR5. SR5, the SR5 Toyota Tundras, they should be costing right around 40 grand tops. But well, here we are, SR5 over 62 G's, no thanks. I'll mention it here while I'm at a Toyota dealership on purpose. So many dealerships, Toyota in particular, fell victim to greed during the pandemic. And really throughout the last 3 to 5 years, they fell victim to doing markups, right? Supply was a little bit lower thanks to the pandemic and chip shortage, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, the little inventory that they did get in, they hiked up those price tags tremendously. Instead of still doing what's right by their loyal customers coming into their dealership, sometimes loyal customers who had been returning to that dealership for years, decades amongst their family, even they were flicked to the curb, unfortunately, right? Even they were trying to hit with markups. It's like, Susie, Johnny, I know you've been buying vehicles from me for the last 15, 20 years, but I'm still gonna need to steal $10,000 more over sticker price from you because we need it for our employees. Yeah, right. And by sheer luck, I happen to have the most expensive Toyota Tacoma on this lot, right next to the least expensive Toyota Tacoma on this lot. We have an SR5 over here and a Limited over here. Any guesses as to what the price tags are? Let's check them out. Let's start with the expensive big dog here, quote unquote big dog. We got the iForce Max hybridized 4-banger underneath the hood for the Limited. And well, would you look at that, right under $60,000. Absolutely absurd. Pretty pathetic. Let's check out the SR5, right? This SR5 should be in the 30s, right? Maybe, I'll even give it maybe 37, 38, top end, even that's high, but nope. This is our new reality here, ladies and gentlemen. Over 46 grand, just under 47. Pretty sickening. And well, look at that. Baja California, Mexico is where they put it together, paying Mexican employees $2.70 per hour on average. Pretty pathetic. There's no denying it. Americans, we love debt. We love bringing on debt, right? We love having these very fancy, shiny cars, the big house, to impress our neighbors, to impress our friends. But even a lot of people nowadays are realizing, A, they just can't make it happen financially, right? But they're also realizing when they cut these things out of their lives and they buy a very affordable example vehicle, an affordable, manageable home, they're realizing that financial freedom is perhaps the best form of freedom that we can offer ourselves. And I want to show you guys a couple examples of the all-new Ford Expedition here. You guys know we happen to have a 2020 Ford Expedition ourselves. We bought it used with 60,000 miles on it. We were able to save substantially. We spent $39,000 on our used 2020, okay? And even that's kind of on the higher end, but 39 grand. That's like literally half of this example here. This one is a 2025 Expedition Max Active 4x4. Let me show you this one. I bet this one's gonna cost a little bit more. Let's check it out. Well, on par actually. So just under $76,000, also an Active 4x4. But these here are the most affordable examples, right? If you were to go get a Platinum or even that new Tremor, you're easily looking at over $90,000, which is just sickening now. No matter where I look at this dealership lot, they're now just starting to sprinkle in these F-150 Lightnings. If you guys recall, they actually did away with these. They did away with them. They halted production for a while because there was an abundance of them just collecting dust, rotting away on dealership lots. But now they started production again, 2025 here, over $73,000 for this particular example. I bet we're going to see the same exact thing happen as before. These are going to begin lining dealership lots, especially when we're getting rid of those government subsidies. People are not going to buy this, right? These made sense when money was cheap, but you can go get a loan for a very, very low interest rate and use it as a secondary or a third vehicle within your household. Most Americans, they cannot justify a second or third vehicle in the household anymore. And here we have Ford F-150 Raptor 37 Performance Package trying to escape. It's trying to escape and get away from all the non-binary trucks back there. Let's check out the window sticker on this one. Look at that, holy freaking cow, just under $96,000. I thought these capped out around $94,000 and some change. This one is the most expensive 37 Performance Package I've seen. Absolutely insane. Why do you have to spend easily over $100,000 after you pay taxes, right? And all the fees, registration, you're spending well over 6 figures for this thing. I honestly believe it's safe to say that people are exhausted. They're worn out. They're so tired of everything costing so much. The cost of groceries, the cost of insurance, over doubling in the last 2.5 years, right? The cost of your mortgage, the cost of rent, everything just continues to go up, all while wages and salaries remain about the same. It just doesn't make sense for so many people. And if they're gonna go out and buy a $90,000 Ford Expedition or a $95,000 Ford F-150 Raptor, people don't want to take the depreciation hits that you get. Granted, the Raptor will hold value much better than the Expedition there, right? But the vast majority of vehicles get ready to lose $20,000 or $40,000 off that vehicle's price in the first 2 or 3 years of ownership. People cannot do that. People are being forced to buy vehicles like this. This is technically a big body Bronco, but obviously a very sparse down version of it. Steely wheels on it, no additional bells and whistles, no Sasquatch package. This here is as dumbed down version of it as you can get. But even then, we're $44,000. Base model, 4-door Ford Bronco. And perhaps you went through a Clay Aiken phase, right? If you went through a Clay Aiken phase, you might be more interested in the Bronco Sport here. Let me remind you of how much they want for these. We have a big bend and a big bend. Let's see what we're working with. Just over $33,000 for the Bronco Sport. Let's face it, the hyperinflation that we've experienced as a country throughout the last 5 years has left a lot of Americans feeling totally beat up and completely broke at this point, right? They can't justify going out and buying new vehicles every 3 to 5 years. Instead, they're keeping their own vehicle on the road much longer. They've realized that performing that necessary maintenance and service to their current vehicle and letting it drive on for 100,000, 150, 200,000 plus miles is a much wiser financial decision compared to swapping out a vehicle every 3 to 5 years, right? We are now currently seeing the highest levels of auto loan delinquency rates within the United States. Highest level of 30-day, 60-day, and 90-day auto loan delinquencies. We're continuously seeing an increase, an uptick in the number of repossessions taking place. So, although used values are going up tremendously right now, be very cautious, be very careful with the vehicle that you're buying. Look into it, get a look underneath it, up, down, all around, and try to understand where that vehicle came from. If it was a repossession, if the people who had it before you weren't responsible enough to make those payments on it or couldn't make those payments on it, what makes you think that they performed the necessary maintenance for us? And here we have a few of America's Ford Explorers here. I want to show you the most affordable option nowadays, okay? Most affordable one on this lot is still going to cost you just under $44,000, okay? So this is the most affordable Ford Explorer that you can get. I mean, within $1,000 or $2,000, right? And speaking of trucks that should be priced in the low $30,000 range tops, we now have Ford Rangers. Ford Rangers that are running you $50,000. 50 grand for a Ford Ranger. This one happens to be a Lariat trimmed example. Absolutely insane. They source the engine out of Mexico for these things. It is sickening. It's sickening that a Ranger costs how much a nicely spec'd, nicely trimmed example of the F-150 used to cost not that long ago. Pretty sad. And do you remember the days where you would go out and buy a Hyundai or a Kia, these South Korean vehicles, to save a ton of money? I'm talking a ton of money by comparison to this Japanese competition, right? Compared to Hondas, compared to Toyotas, Hyundai would save you a ton of money. But not anymore. Now, when you look at the price tags of so many of these examples, they're on par. There is no denying that Hyundai, Kia, these South Korean vehicle manufacturers have come a long way in recent years, right? A long, long way, especially with the styling, aesthetics, interiors are exceptional by comparison to what they used to be. So obviously you need to take that into account. But as I walk through all these Santa Fe's here, all of them are high 40s and low $50,000 range. That to me is still unacceptable for a Hyundai. Call me naive all you want, but to me, buying a Hyundai was always intended to be that cheap commuter vehicle, right? You can drive it to work every single day and have it be affordable. If something broke on you, it wasn't going to cost you an arm and a leg to fix it, right? That is what this always meant. It really was for people who wanted to have a vehicle manufacturer warranty. Right? Obviously, Kia and Hyundai have pretty good manufacturer warranties. Have that peace of mind of buying a new vehicle, but understand that you'd be compromising. You're compromising on really the reliability of the vehicle at large, and of course, the fit, finish, the quality of the vehicle at large was going to be lesser of the Japanese competition. Obviously, they've come a long way, but still, I'd buy a Honda or Toyota before I got a Hyundai. And if not for reliability's sake, do it for a residual. The resale value of your Toyotas and of your Hondas are going to be superior to the South Korean vehicle manufacturers. Whether you want to believe it or not, you can't trick yourself into believing that. These will not hold the same residual. And one thing I do like seeing is Hyundai is now offering 0% financing for 60 months if you were to finance through Hyundai, right? That is great. That's exceptional. Doesn't get much better than that, right? But The trick is you need to get the price tags down as well. And I would argue you can do that. You can get both. You can get several $1,000s off MSRP of these Hyundais and expect to get that 0% financing. And well, every Chevy and GMC dealership looks like this. Just huge lineups of unsold pickups, right? Whether it's a GMC, Canyon, Sierras here, Escalade IQs that cost $160,000 for the record. These trucks, you would just hope for better reliability at this point. GM's been in the game forever, and yet they still seem to not be able to get it right. They can't offer up new trucks, new vehicles with unmatched peace of mind. At this point, so many of them are still being haunted with a number of safety recalls. This one here is a GMC Sierra 1500, $10,000 off, or 0% financing for 36 months. I would wager that you could probably negotiate both if it meant taking one of them home, right? That right there, every time I come to this dealership, they seemingly drop that discount or increase that discount, every single time. They drop that price tag every single time. Watch some of my old videos recently. Used to be $7,500 off. Then it was $8,500. Then I think $9,000. Now we're at $10,000. That's going to continue to be the case as we teeter deeper into 2025, I assure you. One tall tale sign that vehicle manufacturers and dealerships alike are getting desperate is when they start offering really, really nice leasing incentives on their vehicles. And we see that with the GMC Sierra 1500 in particular. They're offering incredible leasing options right now. They just need to move this metal. They need to get it off their dealership lots. It does them no good to let them sit here forever. That's when lot rot comes into play. When you let these trucks just sit here for months on end, sometimes over a year plus, like I said, so many 2024 unsold units sitting here, that begins to be hugely problematic for the vehicle at large. And even the Denali Ultimate is coming in with a discount of just under $7,000, only bringing it down to $82,000 though. That price tag is just out of reach for most people. Most Americans cannot justify spending that kind of coin on a GM product at the end of the day. You generally get less advertised discounts on the heavy duty segment, right? The Duramax diesel options here of the Sierra 2500s and 3500s, and the larger displacement V8 options will generally come at a lesser discount being advertised. But, well, every GM dealership looks like this. They have an abundance of them. They're not flying off the shelf either. So they will need to get creative if they want to move this inventory. Otherwise, well, it's belly up for the dealer. If you really want to throw up in your mouth, get ready to see the price tag on this GMC Sierra 3500 Denali heavy duty, right? Get ready to look at this. Oh my God. I'm always just blown away. I'm blown away that vehicle manufacturers, especially like GM, can get away with doing that now. Over six figures for a freaking GMC Sierra 3500. Obviously it's nice, it's a great truck, it's cool, right? But maybe 60,000 cool, not 100 grand. Here's a big dog version of the GMC Sierra 1500. This is the AT4X trim. AT4X sporting the 6.2 liter V8. I love this V8, it's incredible. I've talked about it plenty on the channel. I love this, especially with the AEV package, the steel bumpers. I am a big fan of this truck. However, what I'm not a big fan of is you should never have to spend this kind of coin and have to be worried that your engine isn't going to grenade itself, right? GM has come out with a number of recalls, especially recently, highlighting problems with their V8s. And well, the 6.2 liter V8 is perhaps the larger of the issues here, right? With the lifter issues plaguing this platform. So again, people are just going to come out and spend that kind of money only to be worried that you're going to have to put it back in the shop for a couple of weeks to get things fixed. No thanks. I don't know about you guys, but I'm so fed up with vehicle manufacturers offering options like this. This is a high-spec, high-trimmed example, a Denali trimmed example of the GMC Canyon. You buy a mid-sized pickup truck to be affordable, reliable, and simplistic, at least in my mind, right? But nope, they offer these high-trimmed, high-spec examples for over $55,000. Pretty sickening, right? I mean, but this right here carries a much larger profit margin for both GMC, General Motors, as well as this vehicle or this dealership, right? There's a much larger profit margin on this compared to a base model. And if you're like me and you have a large family at home, you want to be excited for large full-size SUVs like this. You want to be, but you just can't be anymore. When you look at the price tags, here behind me, I have a Denali version of the GMC Yukon, not the GMC Yukon XL, the larger version. This one here, still right around $100,000. Why does that have to be the case? And personally, I do find it quite sad that the sports car or sports sedan is dying. It's a dying breed within the United States. Everything has gone to crossover, everything has gone to SUV. It's SUVs or trucks, that's really what it is. I'm just kind of tired of that. I mean, I wish we did invest more time and effort into building out awesome, exceptional sports cars and sports sedans like this. But even they are coming with astronomical price tags. MSRP on this particular example is over $63,510. Pretty sad. And although I applaud Subaru for having the smallest price hike since 2019, the national average across all vehicle manufacturers is right around 42% increase to MSRPs since 2019. However, Subaru saw about a 28% uptick, so I applaud them for that. However, even then, I just have a hard time justifying many of these examples. Many of these Subarus will come with a continuously variable transmission, the CVT. And while the CVT in general, although Nissan's is worse, doesn't carry the best of reputations, right? So again, even at spending $35,000 to $45,000, like you see here on this Outback Wilderness Edition, that's just too much. This is too much for this, right? If you spent $30,000 on this, that'd be easier to justify. You tell me. Fair, a lot of people actually jump into the Subaru Outback while they still can before they do that pretty substantial redesign to it, that big facelift to it. And I say facelift with air quotes because, kind of like the Subaru Forester, a lot of people aren't wildly impressed with it. Same goes for the Subaru Forester. Here we have a couple examples on the far end of the lot. Both of these are priced just under, a hair under $40,000. You tell me, is it worth it? Now, I honestly believe that something has got to give, and something has got to give very soon when it comes to new vehicle inventory. Again, dealers are just kind of pivoting to selling and focusing on used vehicle inventory right now. But if people are failing to trade in their used vehicles, well, that's diminishing their ability to maximize on used vehicle profits, right? Something has got to give, and that's going to come in the form of substantial discounts. So I'm talking 25 to 40% off discounts in order for it to make sense to move this metal. Because again, a vehicle that's sitting on a dealership lot for 1, 2, 3 years does them no good. If you happen to be a millennial who didn't play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 throughout your upbringing, you may just appreciate this 2020 Ram 1500 for $42,000 over 75,000 miles. Pretty sad. And well, here's another grim indicator of what the EV market looks like right now. Here we have this Cadillac Lyriq Sport 2, a 2024 model, has been sitting here for over a year. And well, even with a near $15,000 off discount and plus a 0.9% interest rate over 60 months, they still can't move this inventory. GMC dealerships do not want, or Cadillac dealerships do not want these to be delivered and allocated to their lot because they know it's going to be a huge burden to sell. And let's face it, I think a lot of Americans are just realizing that less is more. So many people are gravitating to that. We see it with Toyota enthusiasts, right? They've always appreciated Toyotas because of reliability, simplicity, and affordability. Well, I think Americans in general are gravitating to that concept. Even these new generation Toyotas have deviated so far away from those 3 core principles, and well, that's why people are jumping to the previous generations, and rightfully so. Most truck guys, they're just not interested in a tiny 4-cylinder pickup truck. Even in the mid-size segment, they want something that's reliable, a little bit more durable. They want a naturally aspirated V6 in their mid-size segment. And when they buy a full-size truck, they're not interested in a turbocharged 6-cylinder. They want a V8. Got a Skittles Taste the Rainbow lineup over here at Chevy. Let me remind you of how much they want for some of these Chevy Colorados. This one here happens to be a ZR2 example. So Chevy Colorado ZR2, this one's not the Bison package. This one is coming at a price tag of just under 60 grand. And there you have it, 2.7 liter TurboMax 4-cylinder engine. Guys, I'll wrap up the video there. I'm just tired that our money doesn't go that far anymore. I'm tired of vehicle manufacturers pumping out lesser quality products and charging more for it. And well, people aren't blind to that. Americans are catching on. They're catching on to the fact that they're wanting far too much for these crap vehicles. There's so much junk being pumped out of these cheaper labor countries, let's face it, and still they want those premium price tags. So people are fed up with it. I'm fed up with it. Let me know what your thoughts are. And honestly, tell me what you think is the best bang for your buck when it comes to a new vehicle today. What is it? As always, I do sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you find any value in it whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Until next time.